Misunderstood from the start. When you chase, instead of observe, most men enter relationships with a dangerous assumption that if they are good enough, kind enough, and try hard enough, the woman will reciprocate with love and respect. So they pursue, try to please, initiate conversations, accommodate her emotions, endure the silence, and convince themselves, just be patient a little longer, and she'll understand. But often, the opposite happens. The chase causes you to lose the central position in your own life. Unconditional pleasing makes you predictable, less attractive. And when you forget your intrinsic value, you start letting others define it. Women, like men, are not attracted to effortful pleasing, but to the energy of someone who knows who he is, who doesn't need validation to feel complete, and who can observe without reacting. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. When you're rejected, it may have nothing to do with you. She might be battling herself. You might simply not be compatible. But if you interpret it as I'm not good enough, you're punishing yourself for something beyond your control." A strong man doesn't chase validation. He observes, he steps back to gain clarity, not to retreat, but to stay grounded. He understands that true strength isn't about winning someone over, but about not losing himself in the process. You don't need to chase anyone. You just need to build the kind of man you're proud to be. When you can remain calm and grounded in chaos, you become different. And when you stop needing attention, you begin attracting it naturally. That's the first step toward inner freedom. Stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself. The nature of emotion is ever-changing. Stay rooted when the wind blows. A woman's emotions can shift as quickly as the weather. One day she's warm, close, passionate the next. She's distant, cold, indifferent. Many men are confused by this change. Thinking they've done something wrong, they rush to fix it, to explain, to salvage what they think they're losing. But you can't calm a storm by throwing yourself into the center of it. What you need is to stay grounded on shore. Women are sensitive beings. Their emotions are not always logical. Sometimes they're angry, not because you're wrong, but because they're tired, hurt, or off balance. They may say things they don't mean just to release tension. But if you respond immediately, if you get angry, wounded, or storm off, you're giving away your emotional power to a passing storm. Epictetus said, "The strong man is he who can remain calm in another's emotional storm." When you're with a woman, you don't just enter her life, you enter her inner world, complex and often volatile. And if you're unprepared, you'll be swept away. What she needs is not someone who constantly reacts, but someone who listens without getting lost. Someone wise enough to realize she's upset. But that doesn't mean I have to lose my composure. I can remain steady and wait for the storm to pass. Like a great tree, it can't stop the wind from blowing, but it can root itself deeply to stand firm. This is the art of emotional resilience, awareness without reaction, steadiness in the face of turmoil, and that is what makes you an unshakable man. You want her respect, then be the man who doesn't get swept away by every emotional wave, because only when your roots are deep can you help others stand tall. The craving for validation. Don't turn yourself into an application form for approval. We live in an age where human value, especially for women, is often tied to the amount of attention they receive. Compliments, likes, flirty messages, all of it becomes temporary fuel for the feeling of being validated. But the cost of relying on it is a slow burning insecurity. A woman who hasn't truly understood her own worth will often seek approval from outside. And if you're the one offering it too quickly, too freely, without discernment, you're unintentionally fueling a cycle and losing your own natural appeal. You weren't born to be the one who makes her feel better about herself. Your role is not to make her feel beautiful, intelligent, or loved if she herself isn't yet ready to see those things within. Seneca once said, "He who seeks approval from others is their slave." When you constantly try to please someone in exchange for their approval, you're voluntarily placing yourself beneath them. And once you give up your position, you're no longer a man of value, you're just an option. So how do you escape that cycle? By refusing to compete for attention, by living with depth, standing firm in your values, and never needing a nod of approval to feel enough when you walk into a room without needing to be noticed, but still draw attention. That's when you truly have presence. A conscious man doesn't crave recognition, he simply shows up whole. And the right woman, one with enough depth and maturity, will feel that no words needed, no explanation required. Remember, you don't need to become someone to be chosen. You just need to return to yourself and let others decide whether they have the strength to stay. Social influence. When her words are no longer entirely her own, there are moments when everything between you seems fine. She's laughing, listening, sharing. Then one day, she becomes distant, guarded, withdrawn. You're left confused, wondering what happened. There was no fight, no clear sign, but there's one factor you forgot to consider: the world outside of her. Women are highly social beings. They don't just think independently, they absorb a great deal from their surroundings. Advice from friends, opinions from family, trends on social media. And sometimes, what she says to you is no longer her voice, but the echo of the circles around her. If you don't understand this, you may feel betrayed. But if you recognize it as a natural part of human behavior, you'll no longer feel personally attacked. You'll stop reacting to unexpected changes, because you know not everything originates from her. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it does not belong to you, don't let it control you." Social influences are not yours to control. You can't change her friends, nor the advice she hears, but you can control how you respond to all of it. Instead of arguing, persuading, or explaining, become an emotional anchor, a presence solid enough to withstand the external winds. When you hold to clarity, calmness, and unwavering values, you become the one place she can return to in a chaotic world. And if you're not the one she chooses, that's okay. You don't need the world's approval to feel valuable. Your inner steadiness is your final affirmation. Remember, not everyone speaks with their true voice, but a conscious man always lives from his truth, no matter how much the world around him shifts. Kindness or strength. When steadiness becomes primal attraction, here's a paradox that repeats itself in real life. Women often say they want a kind, caring, gentle, and sensitive man, but in reality, they're often drawn to men who are steady, purposeful, and not easily swayed just to please others. Kindness without inner strength can easily become disguised weakness. That's when you agree just to avoid conflict, please to be accepted, stay silent to escape tension. But such a man doesn't make a woman feel safe, because if you can't protect your own boundaries, how can she trust you to protect her? A man with true presence doesn't need to puff his chest to show strength. He doesn't control others, show off, or get angry to prove a point. Instead, he stands firm without being rigid, is decisive without being overbearing, and above all, he lives by his values, even if it means not being liked. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "True strength comes from within, when you act according to what is right, not out of praise or fear." When you live this way, you're not just trustworthy, you're admirable. Women may say they like kind men, but what they deeply feel is the energy of someone who doesn't need to try to be loved. He lives with intention, with principles, and doesn't retreat just because others disagree. So instead of asking, "How do I get her to like me?" ask, "Am I living true to my values?" Because When you stop living for approval, you begin radiating a natural magnetism. No show, no strain, just steady presence like a rock in the river, unmoved by the current. Be that man, no need to please, just be loyal to your truth. And here's the paradox. When you do that, the one who's truly aligned with you will be drawn in without needing a single word of persuasion. The fear of missing out when she can't choose. Be the one who lets go in a world where everything seems more appealing on the other side. Indecision has become an epidemic. Social media makes it easy to compare, to fantasize, and to believe that real happiness might be just a swipe away. Many women, even in stable relationships, carry within them a quiet fear. Am I missing out on something better? This isn't wrong. It's a natural reaction of the mind when it's fed too many choices. But what you must understand is this. If you try to convince someone who is uncertain, you will only diminish your own value. A conscious man does not try to hold on to someone who is lost. He doesn't use words or emotions to pull them back. Instead, he stands tall, looks reality in the eye, and accepts that a person who isn't sure can never offer true safety. Remember, the fear of loss isn't exclusive to women. Men, too, can be haunted by the thought of being left, not chosen, not enough. And it's this very fear that makes them weak, accommodating, and willing to trade self-respect for an unstable connection. Stoic philosophy teaches, you don't control who leaves, but you control how you move forward. A woman's hesitation isn't necessarily a reflection of your worth. It could be a sign she hasn't yet figured herself out. And it's not your responsibility to wait for her to do so. It's hard to let go of someone you care about, but it's even harder to stay in a bond where you constantly have to prove you're worthy. You weren't born to convince someone to love you. You were born to live true to yourself and let those who recognize that choose to walk beside you. So if she's unsure, be the one who steps back, not out of anger, not out of hurt, but because you understand that true worth doesn't need to be begged to stay. It only needs to be present, clear, steady, and conscious enough to let go at the right moment. A man's greatest attractiveness doesn't lie in his ability to hold on to someone, but in his courage to let go of someone who isn't wholehearted. Emotion over logic. Don't try to convince the heart with reason. Many men believe that if they explain themselves clearly and reasonably enough, the woman will understand, change, and empathize. They bring arguments, evidence, and goodwill to solve the problem, only to be met with disappointment. Because the woman doesn't respond with logic, but with emotion. Women, by nature, are not persuaded by logic. They are moved by the feelings you create. It's not what you say. It's how you make them feel. A single moment that makes her feel abandoned can erase 100 kind words you once said. One look lacking warmth can make her question every promise you've made. The more you try to explain when she's hurt, the more she feels unheard, because at that moment, she doesn't need explanations, she needs presence, empathetic silence, and a solid embrace that speaks louder than words. And most importantly, she needs someone who doesn't lose his footing when emotions run high. Stoic philosophy teaches, we cannot control circumstances, but we can control our response. In a relationship, what matters is not how often you're right, but how calm you remain, especially when your partner is in turmoil. Don't try to win an argument. If the one you love is hurting, don't use logic to fix a heart that's breaking. Instead, be present. Sit beside her, look into her eyes, and let the silence say, I'm here. I'm not leaving. I understand what you feel is real, even if it's not logical. Because deep down, emotional safety doesn't come from you being right. It comes from you not abandoning her in moments of emotional chaos. Be the man who is not afraid of emotion, not swept away by it, but not turning his back either. The one who can observe without judgment, touch the pain without being the source of it, the one who stays not to solve, but to show that calmness itself can be a form of love. Drama is addictive. Silence is how you disarm it. There are women who don't create drama to hurt you, but simply because it's how they've learned to feel alive, to feel connected, to feel seen for them. Intense emotions, be it anger, jealousy, or pain, are more comfortable than stillness. They can't stand silence, and if there's no turbulence, they will create one. An ungrounded man is easily drawn into this game, he argues, tries to prove himself, gets angry, or acts hurt in return. But the more you react, the more fuel you add to the fire, and the moment you lose your composure, you've stepped into her world where emotion rules and reason is drowned out. Epictetus said, "If someone can provoke you, it's because you've given them power." Composure is a choice, and a very subtle kind of power. When you refuse to react, you retain control. When you choose purposeful silence, you're not walking away, you're setting an invisible boundary. I'm here, but I'm not participating in this fight. Silence isn't a weapon to manipulate. It's a space for both of you to reflect. You don't have to respond to every provocation. You don't have to explain yourself when you're misunderstood, because your calm, if steady enough, will say more than any defense. Drama only exists when someone joins in. If you don't step into the emotional battlefield, it will dissolve on its own. And the woman who is attuned enough will realize, with you, she can't use emotions to control, but she can feel safe, because you're not easily shaken, not easily pulled down. Power lies not in winning arguments, but in refusing to be pulled into them in the first place. And when you can do that, not out of coldness, but from deep understanding, you not only protect your peace, but also open a door to growth for both of you. Insecurity and projection. Know that the fear is not yours. There will be times when you're accused of things you didn't do. She suspects you have someone else, even though you've been completely transparent. She gets angry over a random message, a passing glance, something you didn't even notice, and you feel like you're on trial without evidence, without reason, only emotions stacked high. Many men panic in these situations. They try to explain, to prove themselves, to reassure, hoping that patience and honesty will clear up the misunderstanding, but those efforts often fail, because what she's reacting to isn't you, it's the fear inside her, which she unconsciously projects onto you like a mirror. In psychology, this is called projection. When someone hasn't healed their fears, they see them everywhere, even in you, the one who truly loves them. And this is when you must stay conscious, because if you don't understand what's really happening, you'll get pulled into an invisible game, trying to fix something you didn't break, trying to heal a wound that isn't yours. Stoic philosophy teaches, we are not harmed by what others say, but by how we accept and interpret their words. When she overreacts, it's a signal of inner fear, not a true accusation against you. You have a choice. Either get pulled into the chaos, or stay centered and refuse to accept what doesn't belong to you. That doesn't mean being indifferent, quite the opposite. It's a form of compassion with boundaries. You recognize she's in pain, but you don't lose yourself trying to save her. You can listen, be present, and still maintain a clear line. I am not your enemy, but I am also not your punching bag. A man of inner strength is one who doesn't let others' emotions define him. He knows he is living in truth, and if there's a misunderstanding, he's open to dialogue, but he won't kneel before someone else's invisible fear. And when you can remain calm in those moments, You not only protect yourself, you create a safe space for her to face the truth that the fear didn't come from you, it came from within herself. Healing begins there, with someone strong enough not to fight back, not to flee, a man who dares to stay, but without losing himself in the process. Waiting. This is where a man with purpose may find himself feeling slower. He's not in a rush, he's not loud in his charm. He doesn't lure with gimmicks. He walks steadily, plants seeds with care, invests his emotions in a deep and responsible way, and sometimes that makes him fade into the background of a world obsessed with speed. Women can be easily drawn to those who spark excitement and thrill in the moment, but attraction is not the same as durability. The initial rush will fade if there are no roots beneath it, and only when those shiny things fall away will a woman begin to recognize the true value of patience, the very thing you've shown from the beginning. Though she may have overlooked it, Seneca once said, nothing worthwhile comes easily. And this holds true in love. A man with inner strength is not shaken by someone else's delay. He doesn't need immediate results, because he understands that real value takes time to reveal itself, not through words, but through consistent living. Don't try to compete in a world that thrives on haste. Don't lose your depth just to appear more interesting in someone's eyes. If you're the only one walking slowly while everyone else is running, don't change your pace. Be steadfast, because eventually, what truly matters won't go unnoticed once the other person is ready to see it. Long-term attraction isn't about making her feel something instantly. It's about having the strength to not get swept into the race of quick gratification. You're a sower, not a hunter. You build relationships on foundation, not moments. And while that may be overlooked at first, it will be the only thing that remains when all else fades. Patience is not waiting in vain. Patience is continuing to live by your values, even when the world is too rushed to notice. The truth is hard to swallow, but it is the foundation of trust. In a world that increasingly prioritizes feel-good emotions, truth has become a rare commodity. We prefer to hear what makes us feel better, not what helps us grow. And this is especially true in relationships. Women, like men, often avoid uncomfortable truths, even when they sense deep down what's really going on. You may have experienced this. She asks what seems like a harmless question, but beneath it lies a desire to hear a comforting answer, not an honest one. If you speak the truth, she might get hurt, upset, or walk away. If you avoid it, you may keep the peace but lose a part of the trust between you. Many men choose silence, people-pleasing, or keeping things smooth, but the cost of that comfort is the compromise of self. Each time you withhold the truth out of fear of rejection, you grow a quiet anger within anger at yourself for not being real. And the more you bend, the more she loses her sense of safety, not because you're bad, but because she can't feel your clarity. A man with inner strength doesn't seek comfort. He seeks truth, not to hurt anyone, but to build the foundation of trust, because he knows only the truth allows the other person to truly see who you are, and then decide consciously and willingly whether to stay. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In love, this means, even if the truth costs you something, at least you remain loyal to yourself. Be courageous enough to say what needs to be said with calmness, not anger. Without judgment, admit when you're unsure, when you're wrong, when you cannot give what she needs, not to hurt, but to preserve clarity in both your minds and hearts. A mature woman will realize it's better to be hurt once by the truth than to live in prolonged comfort built on illusion. And if she's not ready to accept that, let her go, with respect, but without regret. Truth may cost you some people, but it will also keep the ones who matter most. Self-observation before you react. Ask yourself, what's triggering me? In the tense moments of a relationship, what causes you to lose control isn't always the other person's actions, but the unprocessed emotions within you being stirred. She goes silent, and you feel insecure. She criticizes, and you feel the need to prove yourself. Self. She pulls away, and you react as if being abandoned. But are these reactions truly about the present, or are they echoes of an old wound? Many men go through life without ever stopping to ask, am I reacting to her, or am I reacting to a part of me that hasn't healed yet? The truth is, every time you overreact, you are being controlled by the past, and if you can't see that, you'll keep living in reflexes instead of conscious choice. Stoicism teaches, to know yourself is the beginning of freedom. When you can observe your emotions honestly, you begin to reclaim control. You are no longer a victim of circumstances, of words, of someone else's behavior. You become the one who sees, understands, and chooses how to respond, rather than reacting blindly. Next time you feel offended, abandoned, misunderstood, don't rush to react. Pause. Take a deep breath and ask, where is this reaction coming from? What inside me? Is it trying to protect? The answer may be fear of being forgotten, maybe the feeling of not being enough, maybe a past memory still unhealed. And in that very moment of recognition, you are no longer being controlled by the emotion. You are free. Not every man needs to be cold or detached, but a strong man is one who can stand within his own emotions without being ruled by them. He feels the wave, but does not let it carry him away. That capacity, the ability to observe your inner world, is what makes you different, profound, and unshakable. Freedom from expectations. When you don't need to be loved, you can truly love. There's a subtle yet powerful pressure in relationships. The need to be treated the way we expect. You give and expect it to be returned. You're honest and expect to be trusted. You sacrifice and expect to be loved more. But when these expectations aren't met, they become the root of disappointment, resentment, and pain. Many men enter relationships with a mental picture. If I'm good, kind, and devoted, she will love and cherish me. But people don't always act logically. They love based on feelings, distance themselves due to inner turmoil, and change because of circumstances they themselves may not understand. So you find yourself torn. On one hand, you want to love unconditionally. On the other, you feel hurt when your love isn't returned the way you hoped. You begin to doubt your worth. Or worse, you start trying to change her to fit your expectations. But true love isn't a contract. It's not a template that someone must fulfill. Love, in the Stoic spirit, is a free act. It comes from a place no longer bound by fear of loss or the need for validation. When you love without needing to be loved in return, you stop controlling or manipulating. You step back and allow the other person to be who they are and to choose freely. You still love, you still show up, but you don't lose yourself trying to keep someone who's not ready to stay. And the paradox is, when you no longer need love to feel whole, love comes to you in the most subtle and profound ways. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It simply is, like you, calm, free, and real. Freedom from expectations doesn't make you cold. It makes you steady. And only then can you truly love someone, not because they complete you, but because you are already complete. You don't need to prove anything when you are already yourself. When you understand others without losing yourself. When you love while preserving your inner freedom. When you can observe instead of react, walk away instead of demand, that's when you are no longer controlled by emotion or dependent on anyone's approval. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You just need to be grounded enough not to lose yourself in love. And when you live like this, you don't just attract a woman, you inspire her to become a better version of herself. This is not a game of emotions. This is the path of a conscious man,